The Fuji Rakan. You may remember Fuji from such bikes as Dad's Comfort Hybrid or 10-speed with the bars curled up. But the storied brand has made some real investments in its mountain lineup, including its innovative M-Link suspension and some spot-on modern geometry numbers. The Recon is a perfect example, and a perfect wildcard to bring to our Tucson Bible of Bike tests.
And by wildcard, you mean scapegoat?
Well, was it? Like, are you gonna scapegoat it?
I mean, like we probably all came into this thing being like, well, Fuji hasn't made like a ton of really awesome full suspension bikes in its past. And so like, maybe this was gonna be like the sacrificial lamb, right? But it wasn't for me at all.
No.
I was blown away by this bike. I thought it did everything well and nothing terribly. Like it had no major drawbacks other than the fact that it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And it is kind of a heavy bike. You notice that when you're climbing up stuff. It's just a fair amount to get moving. But what's interesting is it seems to have a decently sophisticated rear suspension.
Yeah, like
maybe
it pedals
more
great.
so than we would have guessed.
Yeah.
So it's their M-Link, which it's not a horsed link, it's not a dual parallel link. It has the pivot right in the middle, which on the surface is like, well, these two things are taken, let's do this. But in the end, it has this nice, supportive, efficient feel. It's not as refined and hover bikey and sensitive as like a DW Link bike, but I don't think a bike like this has to be that sophisticated.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are gonna be riding this with flat pedals. I mean, it's gonna pedal just fine no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think mostly for this, it shined more on downhill for me. It climbed fine. You know, I had no problem with it climbing, but pointed downhill is where I noticed the rear suspension was doing well on this bike. Well enough, in fact, that I felt like the rear of the bike was actually outdoing the front.
Which I think is pretty awesome, you know, because like it's not a bad fork. So to have the rear end.
If anything, it's a sign that
outperform
the rear end is a quality rear end if it's now outpacing a fork that we used to think was a really great fork.
That's what I'm
Not
trying
to
to
say it's not now, but we do have forks that we like even more now.
One example would be maybe the Fox Rhythm 34, which happens to be available for $500 less on the Recon 1.2.
Yeah, like the one down from this one was actually in retrospect probably the one we should have gotten.
Yeah.
Because that Rhythm 34 is a really nice performing fork.
You end up getting Shimano brakes as well, which these brakes on here were Guide Rs, which at this point we've tested a lot of bikes that have Guide Rs. They're not our favorite brakes. They're not bad brakes, but there are better brakes out there. And for $500 fewer here, you can actually get a bike that has Shimano brakes, which we like.
Yeah, that one price point down, actually, it just seems like a better value bike.
And that brings it down to $3,500. This is a $4,000 bike. So for $3,500, you can get quite a lot of bike for your $3,500.
And it should be said, that's a bike shop bike. It's not a consumer direct bike, which I think at this price point is even that much more valuable. It's maybe somebody's first high-end bike, maybe their first mountain bike at all. So it's nice to have that experience rather than saying, oh, you know, all my buddies have these bikes saying I should get a YT or a Canyon or something, and then here you are with a cardboard box and, you know, a folding Allen wrench and no support.
Yeah, and just being able to go back to the shop to ask questions and get, you know, just like talk to somebody if it's your first go at this high-end bike thing.
Comparing value is complicated. Often there's a cheaper bike that cuts just the right corners to be a better choice. Or maybe there's a more expensive one that's more worth the splurge. But we found the Recon is a hard bike to compare at all, try as we may.
Another thing to think about here is you can get an Ibis Ripley with a full carbon frame. And yeah, the components aren't quite as nice. They're NX level components. You get some not so awesome level TL brakes. It's $100 more than this.
It's $100 more than this.
$600 more than the one that we think you should buy of the Fuji Rakans.
So I mean, it does make a pretty hard argument there for the Fuji Rakan, but nonetheless, the existence of that Ibis doesn't make this bike suck.
Well, it's also a very different bike.
Yeah.
I mean, we decided about the Ibis that it is a light feeling, moderate duty, mid-travel 29er.
Yeah.
This one I felt like it was a little more of a bruiser.
Oh yeah, this thing gets the job done. Like it, I mean, I actually had more confidence going faster through chunkier shit on the gnarliest parts of our course on the Fuji than I did on the Ibis. So that definitely is an argument for, you know, if you're gonna be trying to ride burlier terrain, this thing actually has that capability.
And it's super impressive for a brand like Fuji that you would think would cater to the lowest common denominator to really be like, no, this is something that is going to work for the people who are going to want to thrash it. They do this one. They also do the Auric. They do a short travel 27 5-inch bike that I would put almost akin to like the Santa Cruz 5010 or the Evil Calling. I mean, it's really kind of a thrasher's bike.
Yeah. This bike actually kind of looks like a transition, doesn't it?
That's a good point.
Yeah, it has a nice, clean-looking frame to it. And in terms of numbers, for its size at a large, it had a 490 reach.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long reach measurement for a size large these days, and that's more on the progressive side of things. And we noticed that with the rest of the geometry too. This is kind of at the forward edge of kind of the trail bike category right now.
I think that's nice.
Yeah.
It felt comfortable.
Okay, who's this bike for? This bike is tan. Tan is a cool color, and if you want a cool color, you can buy a Fuji Rakan 1.1.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if you want a cooler color, maybe one that's called Oxblood,
Yeah?
you buy the Fuji Rakan 1.2.
Yeah, that's
No way, and you save, wait for it, $500.
You can actually buy some real Oxblood with that money.
Damn,
Yeah.
and you can get some Shimano brakes too.
Yeah. Do it.
Sick. But if you happen to have a sand-colored Tacoma, this matches that so nice.
So the wildcard did pretty well. The Recon can be a high-precision shredding machine, but it's not the least bit unwieldy for a normal or even beginner rider. It's got an advanced linkage, aggressive lines, and some impressive price points. Check out the full review and the rest of the Bible Bike Test videos at bikemag.com.